Community Radio, Salam Radio. Salam Radio. 106.2 FM.
And good evening and welcome to Let's Talk on Salam Radio 106.2 FM. I'm Akil, joined as always by my co-host Ishfaq. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
How are you?
Very good, thank you. Recovering.
Recovering from an epic couple of weeks, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
It's good to see you, by the way. I feel like it's been a really, really long time since we've seen each other.
No, it's just you just missed me.
I think
that's all it is.
That's what it is. But it's been action-packed while we've been away from each other. You know, every week we dive into the stories that shape our world, holding power to account, asking difficult questions and giving you, our listeners, the space to get involved. And tonight we've got a packed show. Nigel Farage sparks fury with his plan for mass deportations of asylum seekers. The UN demands justice over Israel's deadly strike on Gaza hospital. The Court of Appeal overturns a council ban on housing asylum seekers in the Essex Hotel, which was just earlier on today. And finally, flags! Why are they suddenly appearing all across the UK? And what does it tell us about our politics? Well, we want to hear from you. Call us on 01733 602 133. Text the show on 07411 191062 or drop us a message live on Facebook, X, Twitch or YouTube. So let's get started. Early this week, Nigel Farage outlined a new plan. Mass deportations of asylum seekers, detention on military bases and ripping up international conventions. Legal experts, human rights groups and even some Conservatives have branded the rhetoric ugly and legally impossible. Ishfaq, do you think Farage is serious about this, or is it just political theatre designed to rile up the base?
You know what? It sounds the same to me as much as before with politicians, certain politicians, should I say. It's trying to rile up the masses, trying to garner more support from, certain sectors of our communities. People may be saying that they're feeling disenfranchised in some ways. So other people are saying that they feel like they're being overtaken. And I think Farage is just trying to pick on certain people just to try and increase his vote bank. It's as simple as that. But when it comes to it, much like, I'm not trying to knock Labour or whatever, but, there was a lot of promises from the current government which can't be delivered, and the reality is starting to hit home for a lot of people over the last year. And I think that's what's going to happen with Farage. If reform came into power, let's just say in the next 4 years, whenever the next general election is, he won't be able to live up to these promises, and people will feel disillusioned.
Yeah, I take your point. I mean, and just adding to that then, it's interesting the way that he was positioning himself, but I think it's important to just remind ourselves, Ishfaq, especially that the UK is actually bound by the 1951 Refugee Convention. You just can't deport asylum seekers en masse. Each case has to be considered individually. So when you think about this, what goes through my mind is Farage already knows this, right? This isn't policy. I agree with you. It's performance. It's about headlines, not workable solutions. And the language, I feel, is super, super dangerous. It dehumanizes people fleeing war and persecution. And once you normalize talking about people as a problem to remove, it fuels hostility in the streets. And that's exactly what happened when we had Brexit. Do you remember? If you think about the language that was being used at that particular time, and we were being told, and now, of course, words such as invaders and so on come into play as well. All these seeds are being planted, and look, I'm not denying that there's so many small boat crossings that have come to happening across the UK. Especially, we've had such good weather, and they've just increased and increased and increased. But what's the alternative plan? Because people are frustrated about the boats.
Let's put it this way. So many times on this show, you've heard me say that we need to stop the boats. Now, again, like many people in this country, we do support refugees and asylum seekers, but everyone, and I'm talking about politicians here, which then goes on to the public. The emphasis is on the small boats, on illegal migration, immigration. But we're not talking about the issues from, the point, from the starting point.
The source.
Okay, the source. Now, the issue is when firstly, those people are leaving a legal country, a safe zone. So the only reason that they're coming over is they're economic migrants more than running away from persecution or war. So that is the first thing that we need to accept as a public. But at the same time, when I say about the source, as a government, we're going to come on to Gaza, I know, later on, but there's been issues in Syria, Afghanistan, Iraq, Iran, Middle East, Africa, and some of those things we as a country, or our governments, have been a part of. If we create the problem, we have to deal with the outcome. Okay, we want to ignore the outcomes. We're saying we're dealing with a problem which maybe at the time looks okay for us, for an economic reason, whatever reason it may be, or security reason. But we don't. It's like we do the job halfway and then we run away, or we back off and say, right, we've done our bit, but then the problem follows us, right?
So examples of that would be Afghanistan and Iraq.
Perfect. Afghanistan and Iraq, Syria. Syria was a proxy war we keep talking about between America and Russia, right? But at the end of the day, when those people are coming over on these small boats, that's what the general public see. They're concerned that there's people coming over. We should have more concern about people coming over that have actually fought or killed people, like I've said before on this show. In Gaza, in Palestine, we've got IDF soldiers coming to this country, and they're probably hundreds or thousands, right, who actually killed people or killed children or killed, women and children. And yet there's no check-in, no whatever. Guess what? Because they're dual nationals. Anyway, so my emphasis would be that, look, as what I would implore our politicians to firstly do is nip it in the bud when it comes to the source. Don't create the problems that are going to cause these people to come over to this country. Secondly, and I have real concern about this, that there is some undertone about this being done on purpose, right? And it being rubbed in our faces as the British public. Migrants coming over, living in hotels. From what I've seen, some posts where it's lavish meals, others are saying it's not so lavish. Regardless, when we've got elderly people, ex-military, and just generally homeless people in this country who are not being treated in the right way, who are not getting the right medical care, who are not getting the right housing, we need to support them first. And I totally agree with that. Okay, so the people that are coming over, firstly, they need to stop the boats. Right?
Okay. Let me just pause you there. How? We've given tens of millions of pounds to France.
Yeah.
And I cannot see how they've made a tangible difference.
Shall I tell you how? Sorry, Akil, I want to tell you how first.
Go.
And I can't understand why it's not happening. Okay, so you can police outside governments, outside hotels, and I mean in hundreds of police, uniformed officers, police in hotels. Again, it's chicken before egg. Why not stop the boats before you have to police the people in the hotels? Why not police the shore? Right, so those extra police forces that your policemen, that your policewomen that you're using outside hotels, use them on the shoreline. Let me finish.
Okay,
I'm not done. Not just the police.
Yeah.
I'm not just saying line a bobby up on each mile or whatever meter. But
order.
But at the end of the day, we've got one of the strongest navies in the world. Right, you put a couple of ships within. We've got Coast Guard. They can monitor. They know what's happening in Afghanistan, in Iran, and Syria. They can put drones up over Gaza, right, for Israel, but they can't put drones over the channel. And then, I've seen posts where people have said they've tracked these dinghies being sent back to France to bring more people over. That's the government allowing them to be sent back.
Well, I just need to talk me through this.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're saying that we've got the Navy, who has all the technical prowess, everything available to us to police the source, i.e. from France to the UK. What happens when a dinghy's coming up the channel and then we go out? What should happen next? Do we just take them back to France?
Yes.
Okay, the issue we've got then is the sheer number of these boats that are trying to come through, 1. 2, the French police are now refusing to stop them because they're worried about their health and safety, because there was a period where they were using knives and popping the boats and then the people had to go back in. My issue with what you've said is that we have to look at the war zones where these people are coming from. Where are we? So Syria, Sudan, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and the common theme that whilst I'm doing the research, and I guess from a humanitarian perspective as well, is you can't deport these people back to danger. So I take on your board about, okay, so we need to strengthen the French side of things because France is still a safe country.
Let's just say something. They're not all coming from war zones. They're coming from certain countries like Albania, certain.
But we've got a treaty.
Return treaty. But look, when I saw this happening in Greece, it happened in Greece where they were blocking the boats and they were damaging the boats, and I thought they were being heartless. It's not nice of them. They should be offering those people sanctuary. So there's two parts of this, right? So I thought about it so many times. If there's women and children on those boats, no, obviously I wouldn't want those women and children put in danger, right? So maybe you bring the women and children, because guess what? There won't be that many. I guarantee you there aren't that many. Yeah. So if there's a family, you bring them over and you put them through the asylum system, or, you return them, okay? But if it's young men, you do what you have to do, put them on a boat and stick them back, or give them a tow back if you have to.
So what you're saying then is that we
keep towing them back.
Keep towing them back. So use the practical measure of towing them back to France. But look, the economic reality here, and I think this is something that Farage is ignoring deliberately, is the fact that asylum seekers are a tiny proportion of net migration. Now, net migration is mostly legal students, workers, and dependents. Yeah. And I think I was watching Sky News or something the other day, and they were talking about how there are so many people who've overstayed their visas that need to go back as well. Yeah. And I think, whether you agree with Labour or not, I think they've started. It's going to take time. I'm not a Labour supporter in any way, shape or form, but I appreciate what they've come into this. It's been, obviously we're in a year into it, and they've put certain structures in place which are going to take time for us to try and turn this down, turn it around. But the issue that I've got with Farage is, he's been talking about, he's talking about deporting them, but, families, children's, whatever number they are, everyone basically turning them all back. And I think if he wants this to happen, does he really think this is what's going to happen? Or do you think, as I said to you earlier on, this is just oxygen for his movement so that he continues to stay in that pole position, that if there was a snap election today, he would likely become Prime Minister?
People want, the British public want the government to take a hard line on migration.
Well, then I agree with you. But the problem is
that's been pushed in the last couple of years, that narrative, But what people are forgetting is there needs to be a fine balance. So, it's not just about doctors, nurses, and all the other services that these migrants fit into, or even the education sector, which, if you've been to uni, nearly 50% of those students, I would say, are foreign students, which is a massive industry and a massive income. And we try to pick the best out of them to keep in this country, to support us for our tech or whatever. Going forward, there's going to need to be more of that, or we're going to be left behind.
Yeah, no doubt.
With China the way it's going and other countries, so it's important. Migration has always been important to support the economy, for GDP and all that kind of stuff, because the more stuff we need, the more stuff we use, the stronger we are as an economy. And our general public, I think sometimes don't realise that. The services, let's just say if Farage's dream came true, right? And he was able to deport everyone that's come over the last 10 years, right? The NHS would collapse. Yeah. And you know what? There's, who was telling me there's over 18,000, did he say, or 18% of the NHS is just, and I'm not talking about from India or 18% of the NHS has Pakistani doctors. Pakistani, 18,000, sorry, right? Not 18%, 18,000. There might be another 20,000 from India or Sri Lanka or other places. So when you look at it, and I'm talking about specialists and all the other stuff that comes with it, so that would collapse. Your health services would collapse, right? On top of that, then you've got transport. How many people from other countries work in, say, just the underground in London? That would probably not function well. There's a lot of things, taxi services, you name it. The knock-on effect would be massive. So I think he's in cuckoo land if he doesn't realise that. Just, soundbiting the public to win people over. And then there's people that are naive enough to fall into that trap and go,
well, he's got history with Brexit, hasn't he? So,
let's get him out.
Okay, so what we're saying is Farage might not be able to deliver this then, but the damage is already done in terms of public debate, isn't it? The question is, who benefits from this kind of rhetoric? I think we'll leave it there, Ishfaq. I'm sure we'll be coming back to that again as the weeks and months continue for the rest of this year. Up next, it's the UN condemns Gaza hospital strike. The UN has demanded justice after Israel carried out a double airstrike on a hospital in Gaza, killing dozens, including medical staff. The second strike reportedly targeted rescuers arriving after the first blast. This has been described as a potential war crime. Targeting medical facilities is explicitly banned under international law. The Geneva Conventions are clear. This is not the first hospital in Gaza, but the fact that the strike happened in two waves makes it even harder to justify. The UN Secretary General has demanded accountability, but accountability rarely comes. Israel often argues Hamas uses hospitals as cover, but even then, proportionately, and civilian protection must apply. This was live. If you saw this, do let us know. You can text the show on 07411191062 or text us on our social media streams. This was live. I believe it was Al Jazeera. They had a live feed at the time when the first attack came in, and then the second one just wiped them out. I mean, Ishfaq, the world is watching this war in real time. When I say war, it's not a war. Do you think international law actually means anything when powerful states break it without consequences?
Well, let's put it this way. We've been saying for weeks, months, a couple of years now, even before that was happening, how journalists in Gaza, Palestinians have been targeted, how the health workers have been targeted, how women and children have been targeted. Everyone's had the numbers, everyone's had the stats, but you know what? To be honest with you, I've lost faith. There's a lot of noise, right? But there's no action.
No action.
So whether it's the United Nations, whether it's Human Rights Watch, whether it's whatever you want to talk about, there's, people within Israel that are saying, look, it's a genocide. There's people in Israel coming up onto the streets and saying, stop what's happening in Gaza.
Yeah.
Yet our governments and our leaders find it difficult to say the word genocide. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. Whatever Hamas did on October the 7th hasn't served in any shape or form the Palestinian people. The only thing it's done is served the wishes, I would say, of the Israeli regime, and it served them in a massive way because of what they're doing at the moment.
I've got Gemma who's just texted in. Gemma's saying this has served the Greater Israel Project more than anything else.
I 100% agree with it.
Thanks for the comment there, Gemma. What I'll say as well here, Ishfaq, as well, just going back a little bit in terms of what actually happened that day. So I don't know if you know this, but that particular area in the hospital where the camera was set up, okay, that was the best location to receive a internet connection. Right, so it was stable, it was working, the Israelis could see this, and of course they've been killing journalists because they don't want the world to see what's going on, and to wipe that out. And then I think Netanyahu said something like, essentially he was just saying, look, it's
a mistake.
It's a mistake. We'll investigate ourselves as usual. But I find it to be a completely... I was shocked. I mean, I was completely lost for words. I mean, the fact is, doctors, nurses, patients, children, people who should have been untouchable in war zones, their lives have not only just been destroyed, but the Gaza health system has collapsed.
Well, look...
And one more thing, sorry. One more thing I wanted to add as well. The other thing that blows my mind, Ishfaq, right? This has been going on since 2023, okay? What is left of Gaza that they still need to raise? That's the bit that I just can't get my head around. They've wiped it. They've raised it.
Well, coming back to your point initially, when I said about the stats and the numbers, and we've had everything and nothing's been done. This time, the reason it was so shocking is because although people have been saying that and everyone's been screaming about it. This time it was in plain sight for people to see that, look, health workers, journalists, women and children got blown up, got attacked. But not only got attacked, this was as severe, in visual terms, because there you saw in 9/11 where you saw the planes hitting the building.
Yes.
At a distance you'd see people, but there's people in there, and it was impactful. I mean, I was frozen. This for me was Gaza's 9/11.
Yeah, I agree.
Right, in a way. I mean, there's a lot worse. The number of people and the deaths and everything that's happened and the decimation is bad. Any lives being lost anywhere in the world is bad, but this is just diabolical the way it's been carried out, allowed to carry on. We can say it again and again, right? And we speak, like I said to you, we do this. We could talk about this day in, day out for the next year. And you know what? Unfortunately for me, I've kind of lost heart, lost hope, because our politicians just say the words they need to say, which keeps them out of trouble, right? We've got politicians in America that are lobbied. The worrying thing, and this is all so interconnected. Let's talk about it for a minute, where we're talking about Farage earlier on and the boats and migration. It's all one big hocus pocus, let's put it that way, because we're not dealing, when I said about dealing with the source, the worrying thing here is we have politicians that are being lobbied by Israel. We've got politicians in America that have been blatantly lobbied by Israel, so they're speaking for the Israeli government and regime. And same in this country. So they're putting the interests of a foreign nation before our own. And it's the same in America. We're sending arms, aid, whatever we have done to Israel when we need the money here ourselves. We're talking about migrants and supporting them here rather than our elderly and our homeless and our veterans. But what about the arms and all the financial support that we're giving to Israel? And then, like I said, if we've got politicians that are lobbying and working for Israel, they're making this country weaker. We can see what's happening in America. So Farage is one of those people as well. He's signed up to that same old, Israel's got to do what it's got to do.
Yeah, and just to take that on as well with what you're saying is, the UN calls for justice, but real accountability really follows. Look, why? Because the Security Council is blocked by US vetoes protecting Israel. So effectively, international law applies in theory, but in practice it depends on power and politics, doesn't it? Now, if you were to do a comparison, Ishfaq, and I know you know this from your experience in your various roles. Say another country bombed a hospital in, say, Ukraine, the outrage and sanctions would be almost immediate. But we have continuous double standards when it comes to what's happening in Gaza.
The simplest one example, how many prime ministers lined up? Was it Charlie Hebdo, France attack? Right? Where was it a couple of journalists, bless them, got murdered, killed, unlived, sorry. And we had European and American leaders arm in arm walking down as a show of strength, a show of solidarity, right, for those 2-3 journalists. Maybe there was more. I don't want to dishonor their memory by reducing numbers, how many ever there were, but it showed that politicians were prepared to come out and show it for them. What about the 200-300 journalists that have been unalived in Palestine? Where's the solidarity there?
Exactly.
So people do get frustrated with the double standards, with the hypocrisy that's, it's live within this country, in politics, in journalism, unfortunately, and it's there in plain sight for everyone to see.
Absolutely.
The wording that people use, I'm just going straight out. There's nothing pre-written here. I'm just telling you how I feel. But journalists will, there's a no-no to certain words. Politicians, there's a no-no to certain words. And one of the biggest no-nos at the moment is the word genocide.
I agree. I've got a question here for you, Ishfaq. It's coming from Jim. Jim says, Ishfaq, do we live in a world where international law is only enforced against weak states? Does that destroy its credibility?
I think yes, international law's credibility has been, again, similarly like Gaza, decimated, I would say, over the last 2 years because of the blatant double standards and hypocrisy. You can see it even between, Ukraine and Russia, and then compare that to Israel and Palestine. What's happened in Palestine is, there's nothing left, but yet it's continuing. At any level, if 10% of what's happening in Gaza happened in Ukraine, there'd be uproar.
Do you think, I'm conscious of time, but do you think if 10% of what's happened in Gaza happened in Ukraine, NATO would have jumped in by now?
There'd be a lot more action by world leaders and by other states. At the moment, it's just words, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Thanks for that. So the UN is calling for justice, but unless governments act like me and Ishfaq has just been discussing, justice for the victims is likely to remain out of reach. And I have to say, it is truly heartbreaking. As Ishfaq says as well, we've not lost hope in Allah. We have certainly lost hope in the people who make decisions on our behalf, and what they're doing to call an end to this war. So it's not even a war. Call an end to this atrocity. But we pray, may Allah guide these people and give them shifa and strength to continue. We'll be back after the short break.
Stay tuned to Salam Radio after this short ad break.
Turkish Restaurant Peterborough. The name says it all. It's the restaurant in Peterborough that serves amazingly mouth-watering halal Turkish cuisine, including delicious kaneva and baklava desserts. At 1253 Borges Boulevard, Turkish Restaurant Peterborough's the place to dine with family and friends, or order for collection to enjoy at home. Call 01733 307076 or view online at turkishrestaurantpeterborough.com.
Award-winning ST Complete Care provide all kinds of regular and respite care for your loved ones. Rated good by the CQC and with outstanding reviews, ST Complete Care will tailor their services for children and adults, including helping with personal and home care, medication assistance, visits and appointments too. With bilingual carers, ST Complete Care are also experienced with disabilities, dementia, autism, Alzheimer's and more. To arrange your free assessment, call 01733 303300. Caring for you the way you want.
Craving a heavenly escape in the heart of Peterborough? Heavenly Desserts is the perfect place to relax with friends, unwind with family, or for casual meetings with colleagues. You can now indulge in our delicious brunch menu with mouth-watering savoury delights, served from 11 a.m. every day. Visit us today at Cowgate, Peterborough, the go-to spot for good times and great company. Where else but Heavenly's? Party packages available for birthdays and other celebrations. Also available to order through Just Eat, Deliveroo and Uber Eats.
Home or business? Protect what matters most with a bespoke security system from H-Secure Tech. CCTV, intruder and fire alarms, and access control too. 5-star Google-rated H-Secure Tech install them all, with 24-hour and mobile app monitoring, keeping your business safe and your loved ones protected. To discuss your specific requirements, call 01733 590 201 or visit hsecuretech.com.
Craving authentic Desi flavors? Look no further than Desi Restaurant. From midday until 1 in the morning, enjoy our homemade specialties that will transport your taste buds. Indulge in tantalizing papri chaat and savor the rich chersi kadahi. Treat your friends to our fresh 1 kilogram chersi lamb handi. Plus, get 2 12-inch pizzas for $11.95. Located at 298 Lincoln Road, we deliver from lunchtime until 1 a.m. Call 01733 555 795 now to order and experience Desi Restaurant's flavors.
For family fun with a difference, visit the Q Club, Cowgate in Peterborough, and enjoy snooker, pool and darts, simulators and more. Plus, the Q Club serves quality food, delicious desserts and refreshing drinks in the heated Smoke and Mirrors garden. Open from 4:30 until midnight each Tuesday to Thursday, and with extended hours Fridays and Saturdays. Follow the Q Club on Instagram and Facebook, or just drop in PE1 1LZ. Call 01733 913 607.
Whether you're eating in or ordering for collection or delivery, Big Mouth at 349 Lincoln Road in Peterborough is the place for all the family favourites you know and love. But now it's even better, as loaded fries, grilled and smashed burgers, peri-peri strips and wings have been added to Big Mouth's mouth-watering menu of pizzas, chicken and so much more. Call in today, order for delivery via Uber Eats or call 01733 201020. Big Mouth's open 11 till 2, 7 days a week.
Peterborough's community
Welcome-
radio
welcome
station,
back to
Salam
Let's
Radio,
Talk on
106.2 FM.
Back on Salam Radio 106.2 FM. Right, let's move on to the Epping Hotel ruling. A legal battle in Essex ended this week with the Court of Appeal overturning a council's attempt to block asylum seekers from being housed at the Bell Hotel in Epping. Judges said the council had no power to ban the Home Office's plan, meaning asylum seekers can remain housed there. Now, this highlights the tension between local councils and central government. Councils argue they don't have resources, but the Home Office insists it needs accommodation urgently. Some residents frame this as a community issue, but at its heart, it's a housing and resourcing issue, not about the asylum seekers or who they are. The court really makes clear, councils can't just say, not in our backyard, when it comes to people legally seeking asylum. So, Ishraq, do you think local anger is genuine concern about resources, or is it more about immigration fears being stirred up?
I have to take a deep breath here because there's so much that has been said about this topic.
Yep.
Some of it links to some of the topics we talked about earlier. I've got my own view on this, and you know, I've mentioned it before. It's to do with, again, migration and what we're talking about, and I'm worried that the way that the government is handling this, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, I'm not, I promise you, but I just feel that they are trying to stir up racial hatred, racial tension.
Who, the government?
Well, whether it's, look, when I said to you about the boats being sent back to France for more people to come over, for more people to be in hotels, right? People feeling the pinch after COVID, after, you know, the energy crisis and all of that.
The Blues were in power in COVID.
Yes,
the Blues are
yes.
the ones who started the hotel.
Yes, and I still didn't agree with it then. I didn't agree with
What's
it
your
then.
mate's name? Bob Jenrick, right?
Can I tell you my point?
Yeah, go on.
So the point is, that there is a swelling of, I would say, racial tension, and the problem is, look, us as British Muslims think we agree with you that this shouldn't be happening. We all agree. Now, if the far right, the people in the middle, and the people on the left all got together and decided, well, actually, you know what? Let's not make this a race thing. Let's not make this an Islamophobic thing. So. But then there is those people that just can't help themselves. If it was genuinely about safety, right? Let me clarify something else here as well, which really frustrates me. People are trying to use the excuse. I don't agree with what, you know, people being put in hotels. I still think they should be stopped and sent back, right? But when they're put in hotels, there's people like Nigel Farage and the likes of the old Tommy, who are using it to exacerbate racial tension. Now, what happens with that? People are jumping onto that bandwagon and saying, yeah, they're all the same, our women are unsafe. But guess what? If you look at the stats, and we've talked about these in the past as well, there was something like 60% of Tommy's followers, or 45, sorry, I'm sure it was something like 60% on a certain caption, right, out of 100 were in trouble for wife beating or paedophilia or
domestic
grooming or
abuse,
domestic abuse, somewhere along the line. So you want these people to stand in hotels and, again, hypocrisy, right? We don't want them kind of people standing in front of hotels saying they're going to protect our women and children. You know what? What we need is the government to take control and do the right thing by the public. Rather than stirring up racial hatred and tensions, we need to all understand what's going on, okay? We're being sold this, I think, this white lie that all the migrants are the issue and they're putting us in danger. We don't know who's coming over, and that's making people unsafe. We don't know how much of public funds are going to them, and it might be a very small amount compared to the big picture. But while we're distracted with that, there's other stuff going on which is keeping the public's mind away from, again, what we spoke about earlier with Gaza, with, you know, other issues within our economy. Let's all just focus on the migrants in the hotels and forget about all the other issues like potholes and not having enough money, or worrying about energy crisis in the future, or the fact that our rivers are polluted and all that kind of stuff. So we, again, need to look at the source of the problem. We don't need to get distracted by our, you know, oh, it's our safety, and that's only the far right that are pushing that narrative.
Okay. Couple of views then. So we've got the council view, which is the council argue that they just weren't consulted. Residents worry about services like schools, GPs, housing stock, but councils actually cannot override national asylum responsibilities. Then you've got the government failures, which is the Home Office backlog is at record highs. If asylum seekers were processed in months rather than years, fewer hotels would be needed, something you've mentioned. And successive governments promise alternatives, yet keep resorting to hotels because of failure to plan. Now, I was listening to another phone-in about this, and there was one chap, and he said, why can't we have a similar system to when we had in COVID, where we had those Nightingale hospitals, where we create these centres and we process these people as quickly as we possibly can? What's your thoughts on that?
Firstly, let's just say that...
Because, 1 second, I just need to add to that. They're already here. So I'm only talking about the people who are already here.
Okay, well, yeah, we're not talking about the boats anymore, I know. But we had Paul Bristow had the Northern Hotel stood down while he was an MP in Peterborough. Now, the issue we have, or councils have, is that the government, whether it's the Conservatives then or the Labour now, not the actual specific party, but officers within the government will dump asylum seekers within hotels and give them the money and the funding for it, without consulting with local services, local authority, councillors, etc. So it does impact. I mean, if there's youngsters having to be put into a school and school places are already tight, when there's a housing crisis because residents of this country are having to live in temporary housing, that's a concern, right?
Yeah.
And then you're putting people into hotels. There's people I know, I've spoken to a guy 2 weeks ago who I was trying to help because he was homeless. But guess what? They have to find him in a tent before they can house him, and they have to find him a couple of times. There's certain rules for people that are already here, or residents of this country who are homeless, than people who are coming over on a boat. Yeah. So you can understand the frustration that the public are feeling. Yeah. So the government, in whichever way you look at it, are getting this whole policy wrong.
Okay, so with that in mind, so if we had a solution hat on, and I appreciate we're saying we have to deal with the source, but we've got to deal with the people who are here. Surely there has to be a much faster way to get through this backlog. And I appreciate the Labour government is currently talking to a lot of countries to have agreements in place where they can send all these people back, okay? What's the solution? I kind of agree with that person who said, look, we should have that Nightingale-style detention centre. You come in, you're straight in here, you're processed very quickly, and you're out.
Yeah. No, look, I agree with you. We're in a digital age at the moment.
Yeah.
I can't believe that with all the tech that we've got, at the moment, that the government cannot process these people quick enough. They should be able to come, if they're coming over on a boat, we can do stuff with barcodes and all sort of stuff. We can scan, we can order an Uber Eats quicker. They can process these people through whatever system they're using at the moment, where it takes months or years or whatever it is, which is ridiculous. They should be processing them at the quickest pace possible to find out where they're from. We've got everything from DNA testing, checking people's ages, because a lot of these people are coming over and making out they were, underage when they weren't. You've got a guy like me with a grey beard saying he's 14, and the government, the officers were having to say, look, where's the common sense? They were saying, well, actually, just because he's saying he's 14, we've got to say he's 14 until we can prove it. Do a DNA test. You can see roughly what age he is. We've got all the medical tests and tech we've got available to us. Why are we not doing all that? Mm. And then if something feels wrong, more than likely it is wrong.
Okay. Tim's just messaging. Tim's saying, I think we're missing a trick here. All these people that are in our hotels across the UK, why are we not using them in our farms? The British people don't want to do these jobs. We could employ these people. We can give them a base salary. They can work for the time that they're being here, and surely that will benefit the country.
I agree with you. If they can work, they should be... not on Uber. We've had all these issues with
not that.
Uber.
I mean, I like the idea of the farms.
Well, but then it's almost like camps, because you've got to make sure they don't run away off the farms and all that kind of stuff. Then it becomes a whole different thing.
But then flipping it, they have something to look forward to. They're not stuck in a hotel all the time. They can earn a bit of money. They go back into the taxpayer while the system is all working. Is this pie in the sky for
There should be a choice, I suppose, you know, and I can see what you're saying, and I kind of agree with him. If there's a way of making that system work, why wouldn't you? Wherever our industries are struggling and they need workers or, you know, that level of labour, then why not? But it's got to be policed and managed properly. So like you said, we don't want even more illegal immigrants on the streets where we can't control it.
Sheila's also just messaged just now, and Sheila's saying the UK is taking in proportionally the least amount of people across Europe. We are right at the end of the channel.
Yes, that is true also. She's right. But at the end of the day, the image that that's being portrayed to the public is that we are being engulfed.
Is that because this has been whipped up by far-right politicians who've currently got the megaphone when it comes to this?
Not just far-right. I mean, look,
it's a question.
I've been a member of the Conservative Party, and
Have you?
Know, there's members within that party, and even the current leader has said stuff about immigration.
Well, I mean, your current leader, I say yours, your current leader only this week has said that Nigel Farage has stolen her homework.
And yeah, so she's on the same sort of mindset that illegals should be deported and
period.
Yeah, period.
Yeah, you shouldn't be, irrespective of what you can and cannot do. You should not be here. So what we're saying essentially. So I guess the other problem that we have is that the UK actually doesn't also have any safe legal routes.
There is legal routes.
No, but then come on.
There are legal routes. I'm sorry, no, I don't agree with you, Akil. There are so many legal routes. People have rights, legal routes of coming over to this country, applying in the right way to come over. There's so many people that do that. You cannot say that they don't. There's so many different options for people to look at.
What, so from a war-torn country?
Not from war-torn countries. I'm talking. We're talking about legal routes.
Yeah, legal routes
to apply
for people from war-torn countries to come here because they're facing some sort of discrimination.
But there's so many other countries as well. Why just here? Why this little island? When the weather in the winter does get really bad and depressing, and we only have 2-3 months of sunshine. Why would you, out of all the places, I mean, if I was going to choose somewhere, I'd choose Monaco or south of France.
You choose Monaco?
Oh, you know, I'm just saying.
Okay.
And it's closer.
Oh, brilliant. Okay. I mean, I suppose if you're going to choose somewhere,
yeah,
it shows where your mind is at, doesn't it, Ishraq? Okay, look, we'll pick that up. I really appreciate all the comments and the questions that are coming in so far this evening. Got another one just coming in now as well. This is from Imran. Imran said, Ishraq, is this just another case of local versus central government tension, or is it about immigration fears being stirred up?
A bit of both. Like I said to you before, local government don't always know or get the memo to say, look, there's this many. This is from my experience, what I'm telling you, because I remember while I was in the cabinet, it happened to us. And we were like, hold on, we didn't know anything about this when the Great Northern happened.
Yep.
And there's migrants put into there. So it was kind of a shock. And then we're having to use local resources to try and, sort of facilitate that almost, It does impact your local healthcare, education if there's children. Local health services do get impacted because those people will need those services. So when it's already stretched, there's, people don't see that side of it. Dentists, NHS, doctors, whatever, when it's stretched, and then you're adding on to it, whether it's 100, 200 people in a small city or a town, it has a knock-on effect. And you can see why people, when they're already struggling, then would blame the other. And they're the easiest people to blame because you feel like, well, they don't deserve to be here. Why are they here? They've almost hijacked our services. So in that way, the far right or the right will use that and play on that, and that's why certain people will then fall into that trap. And that's what Farage is doing, which takes us back to the start of our show.
It does indeed. Imran, thanks there for that question. So essentially, here's the thing from me to you, Ishraq. So essentially, should asylum seekers be placed more evenly across the country, or is it just always the poorer towns and the areas that should just shoulder the burden? That's actually a common theme.
We don't.
Although that being said, I know in Canary Wharf some hotels are being used, but really, wealthy parts of Britain are not seeing their hotels.
I think they are.
But not in the same way.
I think they are, but maybe the government is wary that there might be a bigger outcry.
So we both agree then tonight, then hotels is clearly not the answer. Potentially some type of temporary detention centres for processing purposes could work.
If you're genuinely fleeing war and you're worried about your life or your family's life, if you once you reach a safe country, say the UK, and you're put into a detention centre where you are going to be processed and fed, you've got a roof over your head, you're safe, would you have a problem with that? I'm just saying, just
No.
as a guide. So that's what you wanted. You wanted safety, you've got it. You've got sanctuary, you wanted that, you've got it. So now it's a matter of processing you and saying, well, actually, you're genuine or you're not. Oh, if I was genuine, I wouldn't have a problem with that, right? And then you go with the system and you amalgamate or whatever into the system within the UK. But I bet you there'll be more that don't fit than do.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about this from experience.
My issue is that why here? Why this island? There's so many other countries that you could have potentially come through, which are also safe countries, and you didn't stay.
And I'll tell you why, again, another thing which we are a soft touch. I believe that our social services is a soft touch. People believe that this country, it's easy to get an easy payday. It's easier to get a house.
Yeah.
It's easier to get a hotel. It's easier to get homed. We're more worried about human rights and all that kind of stuff in certain things. Not when it's happening in Gaza.
The EHSR into where we will come back to this. Look, the court has spoken, but the political debate continues. It's a reminder that asylum policy is not just national; it's felt in real towns and real communities.
Wait,
and
Akil. I think the question earlier on you asked, getting to the point of it, is it about local, national government and the tussle between them? I think this is more to do with national government than local, and I think they know what they're doing when it comes to trying to stir up.
This is an interesting line you're taking tonight.
I'm telling you, I think
we'll
they
pick
know.
this up with you again, no doubt, in a couple of weeks. Right, so finally tonight, let's talk flags. From English crosses in villages to Union Jacks on high streets, flags are appearing everywhere across the UK. Sky News reports it's part of a wider cultural shift. Some see it as patriotism, others as nationalism. Flags are a powerful symbol. They can unite, like during the Euros, but they can also divide when tied to exclusionary politics. The rise in flag flying mirrors what we've seen in the US, where symbols become part of culture wars. So the question is, what does it mean to be proudly British? And is flying a flag inclusive or exclusive? Ishfaq, when you see more flags on display, do you think patriotism or politics?
I think patriotism. I have no issue with the flags. I'll tell you, I'm going to come on to a little Facebook post I put up earlier, a couple of days ago, and it was asking that exact same question, and I'll tell you my answer to it. I've got absolutely no issue with it. I'm still waiting to find a British-born Muslim that has an issue with the flag, probably because there aren't any. Raising them high, just don't let the racists hijack what stands for me. It represents England, my country of birth, a country that welcomes people who want to work hard and contribute as long as they arrive by legal means. That's what I put up. But again, this has been a running theme across this show tonight, which is that along with all the other issues we've talked about, unfortunately certain groups within the UK will hijack that to make it like it's they think being patriotic you have to be white. Now, I'm patriotic, I believe. I have no issue with the British or the English, the Union Jack or the St. George's Cross. They're my flags. They're the flags of the nation I was raised in, born in, raising my family in. So when I identify myself, when I'm out of the country, whenever I go, I'm English. Okay. Now the problem is that there's certain people, when I've made those comments, and other people have as well, because of my colour or my faith, will say, "No, you're not English. You might be born here, but you're not English. You're the wrong skin colour or the wrong tone. Your heritage is something else or whatever." So firstly, I would say to people that you have to accept that if you're born in this country, do you accept that those people are English? Because you can't, on one hand, say, well, you've all got to be united, we've all got to be conforming to what British values are, but then say, hold on, but you have to be a certain colour or a certain shade of, pink, white, whatever. So first accept people that we are British, we're English. And I'll tell you what did irritate me, though. I said to people that I don't agree with them being drawn on roundabouts and on zebra crossings and, stuff like that. And the reason is because I believe flags, like back in the days when it was wars, and I'm talking, 1,000 years ago, 500 whatever years ago, when there was a war, the flag would be your marker, your standard, okay? And people would hold it up, and if the flag dropped, you lost, okay? You'd lost the war if your flag was taken. So men would die, women would die holding up the flag to protect that flag, to raise it high because it was their pride, and they would die for it. And now in this, we've come to a time in our lives, our generation, where people are now actively drawing the flag on the floor for people to walk over. For me, that's dishonourable.
Yeah.
Okay, to drive over,
I agree with that.
skid over, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
So look, if you want to be patriotic, raise the flag.
Yeah.
Raise it high, be proud of it, but don't drive over it and don't walk over it. Now, there was a picture, and this is what I was coming on to about causing division, or as Muslims, I can tell you now that I have, like I said before, I've still got to find a Muslim that has a problem with the Union Jack or the George Cross. Not one has said to me, oh, you know what, I feel vulnerable. The only time we feel vulnerable is when you get far-right thugs waving it like it's their identity, right? When they hijack it as their identity, and they're saying that, anyone of colour should leave, Muslims should leave, we're a threat to this country when we're not, all that kind of stuff. So they hijack it for their identity when I feel it's our identity too, right? So people in this country need to decide what's the marker to be British or English, right? Do you accept people of different colours and creeds being English if they say they're English because they were born here? Because if you don't, then you're the problem, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay.
The thing I wanted to come on to was someone had drawn the the George Cross on a zebra crossing. Now, and they'd taken a picture of this Muslim woman in a hijab walking across it, and they had to say something. Oh, I bet she doesn't like it. Well, hold on. I would probably play hopscotch across that zebra crossing because I don't want to walk on the flag. So either you want us to play hopscotch on it to not disrespect the flag, or you want us to walk on it like everyone else. So it didn't affect that woman. And then you could even put a couple of slivers of bacon on the edges, and that might, it's like kryptonite to us, isn't it? As far as some people are concerned.
Do we risk copying America's culture wars? I mean, where flags become statements of ideology.
It's going that way, isn't it? Somehow it's going that way. I don't agree with councils, taking down certain flags. I think the British standard, the Union Jack, should always be flying on top of every government building. I have no issue with that, and I think it should happen. And it should be half-mast when something happens in the country or someone passes away, stuff like that. I agree with that kind of stuff. We should never take down the Union Jack to put a different flag up. Yeah. I don't agree with that.
Do you know what's interesting, Ishfaq? Both of us travel quite a lot, and I can think of so many countries where I've been to, and that country's flag is very prominent everywhere. I mean, give Turkey as an example, yeah.
Massive flags.
You see them everywhere. Go Saudi Arabia, go anywhere in the UAE, Norway. I mean, some of these, Germany, they're everywhere. Well, and I've always thought, before all this happened, I was like, yeah, we don't really have that at home.
We should have it.
But we should.
We should have one on the Channel Tunnel, on the Dover crossing, right, when people are coming over, as you do in Turkey, if you drive into Turkey or Iran, which I've seen on YouTube, by the way. I've not done that yet. I'd love to do that road trip. But they've got these massive, they're the size of, bigger than lorries, right? They are massive flags you can see from miles away, right? So maybe we should have one. But then the problem is you put a big flag up near the channel, people know exactly what direction they need to travel in to get here. So maybe put it a bit further back.
So, okay. I take that. I think we're living in interesting times. I think the political angle, I guess, for this as well, I'm conscious of time, is that we've seen the rise of flag politics before, haven't we? Look, UKIP and Brexit campaigns use the Union Jack heavily. Then government departments under Boris Johnson were told to display the Union Jack in the background of all media. Okay? But then we have the inclusion versus the exclusion argument, where does the flying the English flag mean celebrating culture and football, or is it code for we don't want others here? Or is the identity crisis where, you know, flags might represent Britain struggling with its identity after Brexit, who we are, what unites us and what divides us? And I guess, you know, take on board what you're saying in terms of we should be flying the flag, we should have it, you know, we should be proud of it. And, you know, as British Muslims, we identify it as being British, don't we? So the flag itself doesn't really affect, I don't think it's having the effect really that some people in some quarters might be hoping that it would achieve. I think there was a video that I did saw of some Asian businesses, and two chaps had gone up there and they were painting these. I think that's too far.
Yeah.
That there, you've genuinely crossed the line.
And they had some comments to say about some Muslim women.
They did.
By,
That was disgusting.
So that kind of stuff doesn't work.
Can't believe that's the end of the show, mate. Thank you for that. And that's it for us tonight. It's tonight's edition of Let's Talk here on Salam Radio 106.2 FM. We've covered Farage's rhetoric on asylum seekers, the UN's call for justice in Gaza, the Epping Hotel ruling, and the sudden rise of flags right across here in the UK. 4 stories all connected by a theme, how we see ourselves, and how we treat each other. A huge thank you to my co-host Ishfaq, and of course you, our listener. The conversation doesn't end, so stay tuned to Salam Radio 106.2 FM.
Stay tuned to Salam Radio after this short ad break.
Fancy the true taste of